blood-stained Aaliyah Thompson's yellow dress as she collapsed outside Brookdale Public Library in the quiet suburb of Brookdale, Michigan. A place that prided itself on manicured lawns and community harmony, but hid a darker undercurrent of racial tension. 3 officers stood with smoking guns, their faces shifting from aggression to uncertainty in the bright summer morning light. Unaware that they had just shot a 14-year-old deaf black girl whose only crime was kindness and whose father, miles away, received an urgent alert on his phone, igniting a firestorm that would dismantle their entire precinct. This is the story of racist cops shoot deaf black girl seconds later. Her father shuts down the entire precinct. A tale of injustice unfolding in contemporary America, where a brilliant teenager's life is shattered by prejudice, and her father's unyielding pursuit of truth exposes a corrupt system rotting from within. Aaliyah Thompson was no ordinary 14-year-old. Born deaf, she moved through the world with a sharp intellect that often outpaced those around her, her fingers dancing through American sign language with poetic grace, while her keen eyes read lips and expressions like open books. Her custom tablet, always at her side, converted her typed words into clear speech, bridging the gap in a society not built for her needs. Her father, Malik Thompson, a 42-year-old former NSA intelligence specialist, had equipped her with every advantage possible, his 6'1" frame still honed from years of rigorous training, his salt and pepper hair framing a face etched with determination and quiet authority. After leaving the agency 5 years prior, following his wife Jasmine's death from ovarian cancer, Malik had channeled his expertise into cybersecurity consulting, becoming a sought-after expert in the Midwest. But his true mission was safeguarding Aaliyah, the light that pulled him from grief's abyss. They shared rituals that strengthened their bond, like weekend coding sessions where they built silly apps together, laughing over failed prototypes, or their signature high five that ended with a synchronized snap, a silent affirmation of their unbreakable team. The relocation to Brookdale had been deliberate, drawn by the acclaimed Brookdale Academy's program for deaf students, blending advanced academics with inclusive tech resources to feed Aaliyah's voracious curiosity. Yet, beneath the town's facade of progressive values lay discomfort with newcomers like the Thompsons, a black family disrupting the mostly white, affluent demographic. Their cozy ranch-style home on Oak Street, bought with Malik's savings, drew immediate suspicion. On moving day, neighbor Karen Whitaker dialed the police about unfamiliar people unloading furniture, ignoring the obvious U-Haul truck. Officers arrived skeptical, but retreated upon seeing Malik's lingering federal credentials. Though such encounters became routine, pulled over for routine checks in his own neighborhood. Aaliyah overlooked for group projects at school, parents citing vague excuses to avoid visits to their home. Malik documented it all meticulously, his training turning prejudice into data points. Patterns of exclusion that fueled Aaliyah's own innovation. An app she was crafting to facilitate safe interactions between deaf individuals and law enforcement, flashing visual cues and auto-translating messages to avert deadly miscommunications that had claimed other lives. That fateful morning, Aaliyah skipped downstairs, her curls tied back with a sunny yellow ribbon matching her dress, signing animatedly about her library meet with mentor Ms. Lee to polish the app's user interface. Malik swelled with pride. Offering a ride, she declined, embracing her independence on the short 3-block stroll, checking her smartwatch's emergency features before waving goodbye as she vanished down the leafy path. Little did he know, this hug marked the end of her unscarred innocence. That Brookdale's veiled bigotry extended into its protective forces, and his skills honed against global threats would soon target a local enemy. As Aaliyah strolled under the canopy of oaks, feeling the sun's warmth on her skin and humming vibrations in her chest, she spotted elderly Mrs. Hargrove fumbling with torn grocery bags, fruits, tumbling onto the sidewalk. Without pause, Aaliyah knelt to assist, gathering items and helping carry them to the porch, earning a grateful pat from the woman who had always waved kindly. From his patrol car nearby, Officer Ryan Mitchell eyed the scene through a lens warped by bias, radioing dispatch about a suspicious black teen interfering with an elderly white resident, possible theft. Mitchell, a 7-year veteran with a stack of unresolved complaints against minorities, requested backup without verifying facts. Soon, officers Brent Sanders and Tyler Ramirez arrived. Sanders, a burly, ex-military type with buried excessive force allegations, Ramirez newer and idealistic, but eroding under peer pressure. By then, Aaliyah had bid Mrs. Hargrove farewell and resumed her walk. Oblivious to the converging cruisers, her mind on app features like emergency beacons for nonverbal users. The library's welcoming entrance loomed ahead, patrons visible through windows when commands shouted behind her fell on deaf ears. Police, freeze. Mitchell bellowed, advancing with a hand on his holster, flanked by the others in tactical formation. Inside, Ms. Lee glanced up, horror dawning as she recognized Aaliyah, approaching unaware. Rushing to the doors too late. Aaliyah reached for her tablet to prep her demo, but Sanders yelled, "She's going for a weapon." Despite no threat being evident, in a blur, guns drawn, orders ignored by the unheard girl, Mitchell fired first into her shoulder, spinning her. Sanders followed with shots to her side and leg. Ramirez hesitated, but added one to her back as she crumpled. Crimson spread across yellow fabric on the steps, tablet skittering away, screen glowing with code. Ms. Lee burst out screaming, "She's deaf, she couldn't hear you." Pressing cloth to wounds as officers froze, reality crashing in. Bystanders filmed, including grad student Jacob Winters, capturing the full horror from Mitchell's barks. "Secure the area, grab those phones." To Sanders' calculated radio call, omitting her age or innocence. Sirens wailed as paramedics arrived, but chaos reigned with officers pressuring witnesses. Miles away, Malik's phone buzzed with the watch alert, vital signs plummeting at library. Coordinates. He bolted, arriving in minutes to flashing lights and tape, pushing through to see Aaliyah's bloodied form loaded into an ambulance. Ms. Lee arguing with police. Identifying himself, he rode along, holding her hand, vowing silent retribution against those responsible, the system shielding them about to face his wrath. At Brookdale General Hospital, trauma teams swarmed the stretcher. 14-year-old female, multiple gunshot wounds, BP crashing. Dr. Sarah Reed led the surgery, repairing shattered bone and tissue, leaving one bullet near the spine for safety, warning of possible leg paralysis. Malik waited stoically, mapping strategies. Interrupted by civil rights attorney James Monroe offering help, revealing Brookdale PD's pattern of targeting blacks. As Aaliyah stabilized in the ICU, Chief Walter Benson arrived, imposing and silver-haired, huddling with shooters to craft narratives. Outside, black residents gathered in solidarity, tension building against the uniformed presence. Benson demanded access to question Aaliyah, but Malik confronted him, reciting Benson's buried complaints and donor ties to supremacist groups, forcing retreat with legal injunctions from Monroe. Malik secured hospital feeds, spotting tampered footage, and began his encrypted evidence collection. Media spun tragic miscommunication, but Malik saw chess moves, preparing his counter. Back home briefly, he gathered hidden gear, setting up in Reverend Samuel King's church basement, recovering Winter's deleted video showing unprovoked fire and cover-up attempts. Profiles emerged. Mitchell's racist online ties, Sanders recruited. Despite Pryor's, Ramirez's fading ideals, Ms. Lee shared library harassment logs confirming targeted minority scrutiny. Hacking PD servers via a Pryor backdoor, Malik uncovered Benson's priority zones in black areas. Post-shooting alignment emails and arrest quotas linked to prison profits. Community protests swelled, met with armored response, while Malik evaded tails, discovering illegal facial recognition biased against blacks, funded off books. As Aaliyah woke briefly, signing weekly, Malik promised justice, her resilience fueling him. Protests faced permits, denials, business citations, but Malik's dossier grew, falsified reports, deleted footage recovered, and financial webs. Alina Park's presser pushed justified force, but Malik's recordings exposed backroom deals prioritizing politics. Warrants were issued against him for tampering, forcing relocation to ally Terrence Hayes' farm, monitoring raids that yielded nothing critical, each overreach adding to his case. In hospital visits via hidden routes, Aaliyah revealed prior Sanders harassment, escalating from an accident to targeting. Malik's net widened. City records of discriminatory zoning, mayors. Emails endorsing demographic control. Media smears painted him as radical, but leaks to reporter Vanessa Lee countered with profiling stats. Retaliation intensified stops, doubled in black zones, but documented as evidence. Allies solidified. Monroe's team reads footage of intimidation, Winter's academics, and even Ramirez's doubts ceded. As Benson plotted, Malik's calm grew, knowing the foundation cracked under pressure. With Aaliyah stabilized in the ICU, her small frame wired to monitors that beeped a steady rhythm of survival, Malik Thompson retreated to the secure confines of Reverend Samuel King's church basement, transforming the dimly lit space into a makeshift war room buzzing with encrypted laptops and multiple screens, displaying real-time feeds from strategically placed cameras around Brookdale. He knew the clock was ticking. Chief Walter Benson's department wouldn't sit idle, already spinning webs of misinformation through local channels to frame the shooting as a regrettable error in judgment rather than the culmination of systemic rot. Malik's first move was to deepen his digital infiltration, leveraging backdoors he'd planted months earlier during one of his routine traffic stops, where Officer Ryan Mitchell had grilled him about suspicious loitering in his own driveway. Slipping past firewalls like shadows in the night, he accessed internal emails that painted a vivid picture of deliberate discrimination. Directives from Benson himself outlining enhanced patrols in black neighborhoods, coded language about maintaining community standards that correlated directly with arrest spikes among minority residents, and memos tying performance bonuses to citation quotas that disproportionately affected people of color. One chain revealed a partnership with Secure Horizons Prisons, a private firm funneling kickbacks to the city based on inmate numbers, with Benson boasting in a private note about how targeted enforcement keeps the beds full and budgets balanced. These weren't isolated incidents, but an orchestrated machine, oiled by years of unchecked power, and Malik copied terabytes of data to offshore servers, ensuring redundancy against any counterhacks. As he sifted through personnel files, patterns emerged that fueled his resolve. Mitchell's history of complaints dismissed as misunderstandings. Sanders' recruitment, despite red flags from his military days involving detainee abuse overseas, and Ramirez's evaluations noting his hesitance in high-pressure scenarios, a subtle critique of his reluctance to escalate against non-threats. But Malik didn't stop at documents. He cross-referenced them with public records, uncovering how black-owned businesses faced arbitrary inspections while white counterparts thrived unmolested, like the corner store on Elm Street cited for health violations that turned out to be fabricated to pressure relocation. This evidence wasn't just ammunition. It was the blueprint of a fortress he intended to raise. Meanwhile, Aaliyah's recovery demanded vigilance. Her doctors noting gradual improvements in her shoulder mobility, but persistent numbness in her leg. A reminder of the bullet lodged perilously close to her spine. Dr. Sarah Reed, the trauma surgeon, whose steady hands had saved her, approached Malik during a late-night visit, her scrub still bearing faint stains from the OR, whispering about officers lurking in hallways, pressuring nurses for updates on when the girl might be ready for questioning. Reed's outrage stemmed from her own brushes with the department years ago. Her brother, a black EMT, had been roughed up during a call. The incident buried on, she offered Malik access to hospital logs showing unauthorized entry attempts, including one where Sanders himself had flashed a badge to bypass security. Grateful for her discretion, Malik forged their first alliance, equipping her with a secure burner phone to report anomalies, turning the hospital into an extension of his surveillance net. James Monroe, the civil rights attorney who'd appeared like a guardian in the waiting room, proved invaluable next. His sharp suits and sharper mind dissecting legal angles over clandestine coffee meetings in neighboring towns to avoid tails. Monroe shared his 2-year dossier on Brookdale PD, including affidavits from former residents driven out by harassment. Like a family whose son was repeatedly stopped for fitting a description until they sold their home at a loss. Together, they filed injunctions blocking officer access to Aaliyah and demanding preservation of body cam footage, which Malik had already mirrored digitally, revealing edits where commands were dubbed louder post-incident to justify the shots. Monroe's network introduced Jacob Winters, the grad student whose video had captured the unfiltered truth. Now holed up in a friend's apartment after police visits, urging him to delete backups. Winters, initially jittery with paranoia, warmed when Malik demonstrated recovered deleted files from his cloud, including metadata proving no tampering on his end. The young man's tech savvy complemented Malik's. They collaborated on algorithms to scan social media for similar unreported incidents, uncovering a thread of anonymous posts about stops turning violent, one detailing a deaf man tased for noncompliance. Last year, the case quietly settled out of court. As alliances solidified, Malik turned his gaze inward on the department. Identifying Tyler Ramirez as the weak link, his post-shooting behavior on feeds showed isolation, late-night drives alone, and a spike in therapy app usage traced through. Anonymized data approaching Ramirez required finesse. Malik orchestrated a chance encounter at a remote gas station, bumping into him while feigning a flat tire, casually dropping knowledge of Ramirez's clean record and family back in Texas, vulnerable to departmental fallout. Ramirez's eyes betrayed conflict, admitting under breath that the training drills emphasized threat assessment skewed by race. How Sanders had mocked Aaliyah's deaf ID during a prior stop she'd mentioned in recovery. It took 2 more meetings. One in a crowded park where Malik shared snippets of incriminating emails implicating Ramirez peripherally. Before he agreed to wear a wire to internal briefings, his idealism rekindled by visions of reform rather than ruin. This insider access yielded gold: recordings of Benson coaching officers on consistent narratives. Admitting the app Aaliyah developed posed a risk to operational security by recording interactions transparently, hinting at premeditated surveillance on her coding club activities. While building this web of support, Malik fended off escalating threats. Benson's goons raided his home under a flimsy warrant, tossing drawers for evidence of hacking, but found only decoys, dummy drives leading to dead ends, while Malik watched remotely, noting procedural violations like ungloved hands contaminating scenes, ammunition for future lawsuits. Aaliyah faced subtler dangers: anonymous calls to the hospital suggesting transfer for safety, which read thwarted by citing medical risks, and a suspicious orderly caught photographing her charts, traced back to a PD informant. Malik countered with layered security motion sensors, encrypted alerts, and community watch rotations organized by Reverend King, whose sermons now wove themes of resistance, drawing crowds that spilled into streets for peaceful vigils turning into marches. The black community, long simmering with resentment, ignited. Protests outside City Hall demanded Benson's resignation. Signs reading deaf ears to injustice, blending Aaliyah's story with broader grievances like unequal schooling, funds, and predatory lending in their districts. Benson responded with forced tear gas at dusk dispersals, arrests for disorderly conduct, but each escalation was filmed, uploaded to secure sites Malik monitored, amplifying calls from national civil rights groups. Ms. Lee, the mentorhood, cradled Aaliyah on those steps, emerged as a fierce advocate, rallying library patrons to testify about patterned profiling. Like officers demanding IDs from only non-white teens using public Wi-Fi, her detailed journals providing timelines that matched PD logs Malik hacked. As evidence mounted financial trails to supremacist-linked donors funding Benson's community safety galas. Recovered voicemails pressuring witnesses to recant Malik anticipated the backlash, relocating operations to Terrence Hayes' rural property, a retired colleague's farm rigged with jammers against drones. Here, he pieced together the puzzle's edges, a shadow database flagging black residents for preemptive checks, algorithms bought from shady vendors prioritizing melanin over merit in threat scores. Ramirez's feeds exposed fractures. Sanders berated him for softness, while Mitchell's encrypted chats revealed plans to neutralize key witnesses, prompting Malik to warn Winters into temporary hiding. Community divisions deepened on white residents decried protests as riots, forming countergroups echoing Benson's narrative of outside agitators. But cracks appeared as anonymous leaks to Vanessa Lee's Tribune articles detailed the prison profiteering. Swaying moderates. Aaliyah gaining strength through therapy sessions where she shared frustrations about her limited mobility. Inspired Malik anew. During a secure video call, she suggested app enhancements for real-time bias detection, her ingenuity undimmed. Monroe filed class action suits aggregating complaints, pressuring the DA's office already wobbling under federal scrutiny, and Malik subtly encouraged via tips. As Benson plotted a smear campaign labeling Malik a cyber terrorist, the alliance countered with an underground newsletter circulating evidence packets, educating residents on their rights during stops. Protests evolved into forums with survivors, sharing stories of a mother whose son was jailed on planted drugs, a veteran profiled for PTSD symptoms, fostering unity that Benson's divide-and-conquer tactics couldn't shatter. Malik's nights blurred into strategy sessions, mapping Benson's vulnerabilities like enemy terrain, his vanity in public appearances, financial ties risking IRS probes, and internal dissent Ramirez amplified by leaking morale memos. When an assassination attempt manifested as tampered brakes on Malik's care, verted by his routine scans, the incident galvanized allies, Reed providing alibis while Monroe spun it into media gold. The chapter's crescendo built as Ramirez captured Benson ordering a clean sweep of records, audio that Malik duplicated across networks, setting the stage for exposure. Through it all, Malik balanced vengeance with vision, teaching Aaliyah via signed updates that justice wasn't destruction, but reconstruction. Her weak but determined responses fueling the fight against a system now teetering on the brink in the fortified basement of Terrence Hayes' farmhouse. Far from Brookdale's prying eyes, Malik Thompson initiated Operation Transparency with a single encrypted upload, sending a meticulously curated dossier of evidence-hacked emails, recovered videos, financial trails, and Ramirez's insider recordings directly to the FBI's Civil Rights Division through an untraceable channel established via his old NSA contacts. The package wasn't exhaustive. It teased the iceberg's tip, enough to spark a preliminary probe while withholding leverage for later escalation, designed to force federal agents to dig independently and validate findings without tainting admissibility. As the files were transmitted, Malik monitored Benson's communications in real time, watching the chief's encrypted line light up with frantic calls to allies, his voice cracking under strain as he ordered a full scrub of department servers, unaware that Malik's mirrors had already captured duplicates. Ramirez, wired for a high-stakes briefing that evening, fed live audio of Benson directing Sanders and Mitchell to reformat drives and shred hard copies, framing it as routine maintenance to evade audits while subtly admitting the app, Aaliyah, developed, had been flagged as a disruptive tool warranting proactive measures. This confession, layered with Ramirez's testimony about racial bias in training modules that simulated urban threats with exclusively minority avatars, transformed the case from isolated misconduct to federally prosecutable conspiracy. Federal agents descended on Brookdale within 48 hours, their unmarked SUVs rolling into town like a quiet invasion, establishing a command post in a leased warehouse to avoid local leaks. Special Agent Alina Vargas, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for dismantling corrupt precincts, reviewed Malik's anonymous tip with initial skepticism that melted into grim resolve upon verifying the first batch of emails linking Benson to Secure Horizons lobbyists who had funneled donations disguised as equipment grants in exchange for padded arrest stats. Vargas' team served subpoenas at dawn, hitting the PD headquarters where officers scrambled to comply. But not before Malik's alerts flagged a late-night intrusion, Sanders attempting to access the evidence locker with a forged keycard. Caught on hidden cams Malik had planted via a sympathetic janitor. The arrest unfolded dramatically, Sanders resisting, shouting about setup as agents cuffed him, his struggle knocking over file cabinets that spilled incriminating memos on quota systems, rewarding stops in black districts with overtime pay. Mitchell, sensing the tide turn, fled to a cabin upstate, but was apprehended at a roadblock, his phone yielding texts coordinating witness tampering, including threats to Ms. Lee's family if she testified about library patterns. Benson, cornered in his office during a raid, lunged for a shredder stuffed with personnel complaints, but Vargas personally intervened, her calm authority freezing him mid-motion as she recited charges: civil rights violations, evidence obstruction, and RICO implications for the prison racket. The chief's bluster evaporated into pleas for a deal, but Malik, observing remotely, ensured no quick outs by leaking select audio to national outlets, igniting a media frenzy that painted Benson not as a rogue but the architect of a discriminatory empire. Ramirez's full defection followed, its immunity deal secured after a tearful deposition, detailing how idealism eroded under Benson's mentorship, recounting specific ops like Operation Clean Sweep, where black gatherings were dispersed under pretexts of noise complaints while white bloc parties proceeded unchecked. This insider betrayal fractured the department. Junior officers, seeing promotions evaporate, began flipping, one revealing a blue wall fund used to bail out favored cops from complaints, another exposing Benson's personal slush account tied to donor retreats where supremacist rhetoric mingled with policy talks. Mayor Harlan Grant, Brookdale's polished three-term incumbent, crumbled next, his emails hacked by Malik, showing explicit approval of PD tactics to preserve neighborhood integrity. Code for gentrification via harassment. Grant's late night call to Vargas begged for leniency, testifying against Benson in exchange for house arrest. But the DA's office, already under fire, indicted him for conspiracy. His resignation broadcast live as protesters cheered outside City Hall. Alina Park, the district attorney who'd stonewalled early complaints, faced disbarment after records showed her dismissing 47 excessive force cases against minorities over 5 years. Her cooperation deal, forcing her to detail backroom pacts with Benson to bury investigations in election cycles. As indictments rolled 27 in total, spanning officers, officials, and contractors, the community reeled. White residents grappling with complicity in forums hosted by Reverend King, where survivors shared unfiltered stories. A father whose business shuttered from repeated inspections, a teen scarred from unwarranted tazzing, Black leaders formed oversight committees demanding veto power on hires, while national orgs like the ACLU provided training on de-escalation apps modeled after Aaliyah's prototype. 6 months later, under crisp autumn skies, Brookdale bore scars of transformation. The PD rebranded as the Community Safety Division. 75% of staff replaced with diverse recruits vetted for bias-free records, and mandatory ASL and cultural competency courses integrated into academy curricula. Aaliyah, now 15, walked with a cane but unbowed spirit. Her pre-named Bridge Connect launched statewide, featuring AI-driven alerts for miscommunications. Adopted by reform-minded departments after pilot tests showed a 40% reduction in escalation incidents, Malik declined FBI consult offers, instead founding the Aaliyah Thompson Accountability Fund with a $15 million settlement, granting scholarships for tech devs from marginalized groups and funding body cam audits nationwide. The fund's first initiative sponsored community dashboards tracking PD metrics, empowering residents to flag disparities in real time. At a park dedication ceremony honoring victims of profiling, Aaliyah addressed the crowd via her tablet's voice synth, her signs fluid and emphatic, interpreted live. Pain forged this change, but hope sustains it. We build tools, not just to survive systems, but to reshape them. Cheers erupted as she unveiled Bridge Connect's expansion to multilingual support, aiding immigrants facing similar barriers. Malik stood aside, pride mingling with vigilance, his encrypted phone buzzing with alerts from Hayes about adjacent towns mirroring Brookdale's old patterns, quotas in disguise, donor influences unchecked. Ramirez, now a trainer in ethical policing elsewhere, attended quietly, his ASL attempts at apology met with Aaliyah's measured nod, acknowledging growth without absolution. Community rifts mended unevenly. Churches hosted mixed-race dialogues. Dissecting privilege, schools revamped history lessons on local redlining, and businesses formed alliances against discriminatory lending. Yet challenges lingered. Holdout residents sued over overreach, but courts upheld reforms, citing Malik's evidence as irrefutable. Aaliyah's therapy evolved into advocacy, her sessions blending trauma processing with app beta testing, inspiring peers to code solutions for autism-friendly interfaces or mental health crisis de-escalators. Malik, reflecting during a quiet cemetery visit to Jasmine's grave, signed updates skyward, crediting her foresight in preparing them for America's inequities. The ceremony's afterglow saw alliances bloom. Ms. Lee elected to the school board on equity platforms, Reed spearheading hospital protocols for bias-free care, and Winters publishing a thesis on digital resistance. As evening fell, Malik received a secure dossier on regional networks departments sharing best practices that echoed Benson's playbook, hinting at a wider web. Aaliyah, sensing his distraction, sighed, one town at a time, Dodor all at once. Her question lingered, a spark for future battles. As Brookdale's rebirth proved, corruption's antidote lay in relentless exposure and communal rebirth, not vengeance alone. The story's ripple extended nationally, sparking congressional hearings on private prison influences, with Malik testifying anonymously via proxy. His methods debated in ethics panels, but results were undeniable. Back home, family rituals resumed coding. Nights now including community kids, high fives echoing in expanded circles. Benson's trial loomed, his defenses crumbling under witness parades, each testimony a nail in systemic coffins. Grant's fall birthed a new mayor from the protests' ranks, a Latina activist prioritizing restorative justice circles over punitive measures. Park's replacement, a reform prosecutor, dismissed bogus charges en masse, freeing dozens wrongfully detained. The fund's grants empowered similar fights elsewhere. One recipient uncovering audio of quota meetings in a southern precinct, crediting Malik's blueprint. Aaliyah's limp faded with physio, but her voice amplified. Guest lecturing via video on Tech's role in equity, her app downloaded millions, saving lives in silent ways. Reverend King's church became a hub for ongoing vigils, not just remembrance, but forward action, with murals depicting the library steps as a turning point. Winter's network grew into a whistleblower app, with Ramirez contributing anonymized modules. Reed's protocols spread to regional hospitals, preventing miscommunications in URs. Monroe's firm expanded pro bono work, mentoring young lawyers in digital forensics. As winter approached, Malik pondered expansion, his skills itching against complacency, while Aaliyah's optimism tempered his caution. The transformation wasn't flawless. Backlash simmered in online forums, old guards plotting comebacks, but vigilance wove into Brookdale's fabric, protests evolving into policy workshops. At a holiday gathering, Aaliyah signed a toast, from silence to symphony. Her app's new feature, harmonizing voices across divides. Malik nodded. The war won, but the peace ongoing, a testament to one family's stand reshaping a nation's conscience.